In today's highly competitive global market, your business is changing faster than ever. Robert Tercek is an expert in the process of innovation, giving businesses the tools they need to avoid disruptions and successfully deal with change.
You don't need permission anymore to innovate. Anyone has the ability to innovate. Anyone has the ability to publish. Anyone has the ability to create and share ideas. This is a new idea. This is the first time in history where anyone has the power to create ideas and share them worldwide. And so we're entering this brilliant new age, I think, a new age of creativity, where people are going to be connected through technology to share ideas with each other. These ideas aren't just about content. They're not just about media. They're actually the ideas that shape us as a culture, and they shape our civilization.
For more than 20 years, he has launched successful new ventures in every corner of the world. And today, he provides strategic guidance to the world's leading technology and media companies. He has been named one of the most innovative executives in media, and the press has called him a TV anarchist for his pioneering work in interactive television and online video.
And so as I look back at my career, I said, wow, in fact, I've never had a job that existed before I took it. And in many cases, I've worked in companies that didn't exist before I joined them, and sometimes entirely new industries that didn't exist before I got into those jobs. Now, that's been an exciting path, but I think that's becoming more and more common. As some of the people in the room raise their hands, it's not so uncommon today to hear about people who are working in fields that simply didn't exist. If we think about this path, the past 20 years, and then think forward 20 years, what new industries are going to come? What new industries and new businesses are going to evolve or emerge that we can't even anticipate? New devices, new kinds of networks, entirely new types of entertainment and media. And you don't need to be a part of a big company to do this. You can do it on your own. Because now, for the first time ever, anybody can publish. Publishing and distribution have been trivialized. So you really don't need the permission of a big company to get started. And if you're in any business at all, it doesn't mean you have to be part of a major media company. If you're in any type of business today, media will be a part of what you do because almost all marketing is becoming media and content. All companies have a need to communicate internally to their own employees, to manage the information inside their organizations, and externally to their customers and their business partners. And so in a way, we're all part of this growing media sphere, this growing media ecosystem.
Really great creative leaders think big. If you're a creative leader, if you've got an idea that's really big and you want to get people to come work with you, you're going to have to convince them to stop working on their idea. You're going to have to convince them to drop what they're doing and to kind of gather around you. And the directors that I worked with that were really good at what they did, they had a great big vision, crazy big ideas. And perhaps the craziest of them all was a guy named Wayne Isham. He was the ultimate live event rock and roll director. And he would produce these spectacular events in giant arenas. And so I had the opportunity to work with him as a creative director for the Moscow Music Peace Festival in 1989. I was 25 years old. And this blew my mind. It was the largest rock concert ever in Europe. It was the largest rock concert ever in the Soviet Union. And this was back in the old days when it was the Soviet Union. They had the largest land convoy in history since the Second World War across Europe with all the gear they needed. And we rocked out in the Lenin Stadium with 300,000 fans. It was an amazing idea, great big vision that Wayne Isham had. And the day before the concert, we had everything ready to go. And of course, when you're working in the Soviet Union, there was a lot of government process we had to observe. We had to go through the formalities. Well, the day before the show, everything was set to go. And the director came in and he said, I've got an idea. What I would love to do before the concert starts, I want to see a helicopter fly in, and it's going to fly over the whole stadium, and then it's going to land right in the middle of the stadium. And I listened to this and I said, this guy's crazy. How can he do it? How can he do it? There's going to be 300,000 people in this stadium. And besides, we're in the Soviet Union. How is he going to get permission to fly a helicopter into this stadium? So I didn't believe it. I actually didn't see how that was going to be possible. You can imagine my surprise the next morning when the concert started and we saw this gigantic helicopter fly in. Somehow they managed to convince in 24 hours the Soviet army to lend them a helicopter, and the thing flew in, and the Soviet army marched out and cleared a circle in the middle of the stadium that was filled with a teeming crowd of fans. They pushed them back, the helicopter landed, and out jumped Ozzy Osbourne, who's kind of godlike in Russia. So I learned a great lesson there, which is if you want to inspire people to do the impossible, think very, very, very big, sometimes crazy big. Now, as creative people, of course you're open, right? You're open-minded, you're open to new ideas, you're open to new experiences. That's common. The kind of openness I want to talk about is a little bit different. It's technology-based. Technology-based openness. Now, 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to launch some of the first video services on mobile phones around the world. And I had all kinds of ideas. I was so excited about this. Every day I would come into work and I'd have pictures and videos and diagrams of all the cool things that we could do. And I just was brimming with ideas. And then I would sit down with the engineers and start to tell them about my ideas, and then they would show me a picture like this. And this picture, this picture was basically their way of saying, look, Rob, you can't quite do all the stuff that you want to do, and here's why. And so I had to learn a little bit more about how the wireless network worked, because there were certain constraints. Wireless networks at that time were not open. And so some of the ideas that I had were more like internet ideas, open access to everybody, the ability for people to send things back and forth. Couldn't quite do that so easily in wireless at that time. So I learned about the wireless network, and I learned about networks in general, and these technologies that underlie the experiences that consumers have. And I realized then that every innovation, every creative thing that we experience that comes over a network is really riding on top of the innovations of thousands of other people. Because behind this diagram, there are literally thousands and thousands of ideas, thousands of innovations that make it possible for us to have these miniature miracles in our pocket, these mobile phones that are such powerful microcomputers with broadband internet connections and video, of course. And so it's kind of a miracle if you think about it. All the work, a collaborative process that took years, where scientists and researchers would patent new technologies that then made possible other innovations. And that made possible another wave of innovations until you get to the day and age where we are today, where truly you've got a supercomputer in your pocket.
Social media is so seductive. It asks you to tell all about yourself, all about your interests, your likes, your dislikes, your passions, the things that you're working on, your projects, your background, your experience, your education. Tell me all about your friend. It's like the greatest lover you ever have. No wonder we're falling out of love with television. And social media does something else that TV can't do. It gives us validation in a way that TV never can. When you post something and someone shares it, or when you change your status and someone likes it, you're getting validation that's instantaneous. It's better than instant gratification. You're getting validation that's directly personal to you. And that's an incredibly powerful feeling. It's incredibly addictive. Now, what happens, I think, is some people look at that and they say, well, gosh, social media is totally trivial. It's not a long-term thing. It's a fad. It's a passing fad. It's superficial. It's vain. It's narcissistic. And there may be some wisdom in that. My view is a little bit different. I say, hey, these are brand new tools. We're just learning how to do this. We haven't been in the habit of telling stories about ourselves for about 60 years, so we're just learning now how to use these tools. And my experience in working with audiences that want to participate is actually they have good stories to tell.
Yeah.
Is there any place that we could, small business owners could go, that could use certain tools? I mean, that's obviously a tool that you're using, right?
Yeah. And mainly your question is about time, because you can't do all of these things. So which is the right one for you? The second question, though, is are there special social tools for businesses? And the answer is absolutely yes. So there are things like Yammer that are designed to create, a social network within a company where, you don't want your staff like talking about the company out in Facebook in public or out in Google+, So Yammer's created kind of like private social networking for businesses. So there are tools for sure that will help companies. That's one answer. That's one possible answer. And I would search on Mashable. It's by far the best source of information, or the Next Web. There are several sites that cover these topics in depth, and they can give you some examples of the companies that do it. In terms of how you spend your time as a small business owner, knowing that you can't cover every single base, you got a real challenge, right? Because you don't know where your customers are, and you have to really think about that. So as I've been listening to Simon here this week, the last couple of days, I've been thinking about that very thing myself, saying, all right, here's a guy who's an advertiser, basically, right? You're an advertiser, you have a message, you want to get it out, you don't have time. And now here we've got all these people who are blogging and writing and tweeting, and I'm thinking to myself, well, hang on a second. Couldn't you sponsor some of them and get your message out that way? And surely you could. I work with a fellow who's doing this in a very clever way, Jason Calacanis. He might know. He's an entrepreneur here in Los Angeles. He's a multi-kind of entrepreneur. He's launched many companies. He's a very flamboyant and outspoken figure with lots of opinions. And so he created his own talk show called This Week in Startups. And now he's launched a series of talk shows. I do one, This Week in Social Media. And he has sponsors, and it's like the early days of television. He has 2 sponsors. They're built into his show. He talks about them. And his rule about sponsorship is whoever the host of the show is has to actually use the tool and talk about the tool in a positive way. To me, this is a really powerful way to use social media, right? So your message gets out there. You're getting an endorsement from somebody that people trust, so you get that credibility transfer happening. But you don't actually have to do the work, because that's why you're spending the ad dollars, right? Now, that said, you do need to use these tools. You do need to get active, and you do need to follow people as well. So you also have to consume some content, and it is a time investment. I think it's obligatory. But try to find the people who are in your category already and see if you can't turn them into kind of a NASCAR driver with a patch on their shoulder with your logo on it. It's a way to go.
Robert Tercek knows how to deal with disruptive change because he has practical experience inventing the future. In his speeches, he shows audiences how to understand disruption, how to find the path to success, and how to implement specific techniques for mastering change. His motto is inventing the future, and he is ready to teach you how.